Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the DJ Hockey Talk podcast. I'm Josh Brewster with
Dennis Bernstein.
How you doing there, Dennis?
JB, it's been a minute.
It's been a long minute.
I've been in Philly.
I had a lot of
freezing my butt off in Philly this week.
Yeah, I had a lot of mental problems recently. So
okay, well, it happens. Bounce back. It's not about hitting the valley. It's about how you bounce back.
Right, exactly.
So in Philly this week, freezing my butt off, but glad to be with you and doing the DJ Hockey Talk podcast one more time.
Don't forget to follow us at Radio Hockey Talk and go to hockeytalkradio.com, and also check us out on iTunes, where it's always
free.
It is free.
No credit card, no subscription.
Haven't charged you yet, have I? Have I charged anybody yet?
Not yet.
Haven't charged anybody yet. All right. Well, listen, Dennis, let's talk about something we didn't expect when the season began, which is that the Boston Bruins would be giving us a lot of grist for the mill here. They have really come on with the line of Bergeron, Marchand, and Pasternak. They've got a bunch of young guys pressing. They've got Charlie McAvoy maybe entering the Calder discussion. And so things are getting very interesting in Boston. And also I'll point out that earlier in the season, Tuukka Rask fought off a bit of a challenge from Anton Khudobin right in the net. Yeah. So he's looking steady again, and things are looking up in Boston.
Yeah, well, they dominated in Montreal. I think they played him 3 times in 8 days and dominated him in those 3 games. But JB, they're 3 points behind Tampa, the team that we had anointed that was going to cruise to a President's Trophy. Not that the President's Trophy means a lot, but they were going to cruise to a number 1 seed overall. They're 3 points out. This is the best team in hockey right now. This is the best line in hockey right now. When you watch the puck possession of this team, of that line, it's just amazing. That the 1 goal they scored last night, they must have the puck for 90 seconds in the zone. It's just a perfect combination of a one of the top elite centers in the league in Patrice Bergeron, the speed and spunk of Marchand, and then just the pure goal scoring ability of David Pasternak. They are just clicking on all cylinders. And the guy in Bruce Cassidy, who there was certainly a lot of critics when he replaced Claude Julien. He beat Julien 3 times in 8 days now, and they have certainly gravitated towards his message. They've done a fantastic job, and they are going to be very dangerous, JB.
Yeah, what happened with the schedule maker? That's all they've been playing lately. It's been Habs.
Yeah, they played 3 in 8 days. I don't know why that happens or why that occurs in division, but Montreal caught him at the wrong time. The top pick, you mentioned Charlie McAvoy, but to be paired with Zdeno Chara, and for Chara not to be the best defender on that pairing says a lot about this team. So McAvoy is certainly, I think, he was the 12th selection by them. What a steal right now. Everything's clicking on all cylinders, and right now I think they're clearly the best team in hockey, and they will be very dangerous. I think this team can have legs in the playoffs. I really think that they could go 3 rounds, and I think that it's the last team Tampa wants to face right now because they can defend, they have speed, they have a number 1 line like they do. They can match, not really pound for pound up front, but they have enough up front, I think, where they could and they can compete with Tampa. Still like Tampa a little bit more. I think also you see the impact of Victor Hedman being out of the lineup as well, JB. I think that's why maybe Tampa's take a little step back here. But Boston, and they're entertaining to watch.
16 straight points, games, exactly. 16 straight games. So a 4-1 win over the Les Canadiens on Saturday night. And, they are quite a surprise. I really did not see the Bruins being more than a bubble club, but they are. Let's click over for just a moment here, staying in the Atlantic Division. Let's talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs for a moment here. Mm-hmm. I suggested at the beginning of the season that there are a lot of sophomores here, and there are a bunch of guys who are not quite clicking at the same point total that they were last season. So you've got them coming back to earth a little bit there. Mike Babcock has been under a little bit of fire because he's playing a very defensive style in the eyes of Leaf fans, and so he's had to kind of sell that. But he's been insistent. Look, I'll make the decisions around here, and that's just the way it's going to go. Where do you think the Leafs are as we stand heading into around the 50-game mark?
Well, Saturday night that was a big win. They were down 3-1 in Ottawa, came back out of 4-3 win, and earlier in the week, Freddie Andersen called the team out, saying we got to be better. And Freddie, as you probably
yes, he did, and good on him, by the way, because I think the guy's an all-star, but he didn't get named.
Yeah, and as you know from his time here in Anaheim, not a very outspoken guy. So when he steps up and makes very pointed comments towards his teammates, they listened. right? So it's a big win. JB, I think this team is clearly a 3 seed. Unless they do something to address their blue line, I think it could be 1 and out. I think right now, I just think that they're going to play the loser of Tampa and Boston, and they're clearly not as good at defensively as either one of those teams. So they'll be entertaining. They'll be fun down the stretch to watch. I assume they'll get the 3 seed, but at this point in time, unless they make a trade for a legitimate top 4 defenseman, and even then, I just don't think this team plays well defensively enough to beat either Tampa or Boston, who they'll likely face in the first round.
Do you think that they are in the running for Oliver Ekman-Larsson?
Yeah, I think they absolutely are in the running for Oliver Ekman-Larsson. I think it would be a great fit. Will they trade him or not? I don't know. He's, minus 38 in Arizona.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Well, it means that the team stinks. It means that everybody stinks. It means he's not playing it particularly well. Because when you're that bad,
that stat is only useful in the extreme, I would agree. But
that's an extreme.
It's an
It could be a minus 70.
This team, you're talking AHL guys on top of AHL guys.
No, it depends on what Scheika wants to do. They said adamantly they want to trade him. But look, do you think this guy who's going through this terrible season with not a lot of prospects, with the organization in disarray, is going to stay in Arizona? And they may not even be there to get an arena. I mean, I got to think that. Look, I would trade him right now. I would clearly go all in for Dahlin. So what you can do is you can swap out the old Swedish defenseman for a new Swedish defenseman. I think they're clearly going to be the number one. They're going to have the best odds to win the lottery. It'll be Ramses Dahlin, and they'll try to rebuild from that point in time. But it's just a bad fit. So if I'm Scheika, I want to trade him to a team now because they'll get 2 playoff runs with him. If you wait till the end of the season, then you only get 1. I just think you get incremental value when you can offer a team to have Ekman-Larsson in the lineup for 2 playoff runs.
Now that we're on Arizona, how much time does John Scheika have? Mr. Analytics.
I don't think he's in any jeopardy. He's just gotten to the top of the year. No, what are you going to do? Who are you going to replace him with? Well,
maybe not on January 21st, but maybe an older hockey guy. Maybe a little less emphasis on the analytics guy.
Yeah, I would do if I was
the young math whiz guy.
Yeah. No, clearly an experience. Clearly it hasn't worked. But if I was Barroway, what I would do is if you still buy into the system of analytics and the way Scheika looks at how to build a team, I would, like they did here in Los Angeles, like Dean Lombardi brought in Jack Ferrara, right? You need maybe not a guy to replace Scheika, but certainly a right-hand man that can guide him, and when somebody has had experience, maybe Dean Lombardi. Who knows? I mean, so I think that's what I would do. If you want to keep the young guy in place because it's only been a year and you want to give him a little bit more traction, I get that, understand it, but you got to bring in a more equipped, more veteran GM to maybe just sit aside alongside of him. Maybe you look at how you draft players, you look how you evaluate players, player evaluation. They traded Duclair, and Duclair didn't have really nice things to say about the organization. Well, actually, it was the GM that really didn't say nice things about Duclair. You saw some comments about...
Yeah, Duclair needed a change of scenery.
Yeah, he needed a couple of changes of scenery. And you saw comments from Louis Domingue, the third-string goaltender, how about he was treated in Arizona. So it's a mess there. It's clearly a mess, JB. I don't know how they fix it. Now you always have the arena situation overhanging. I think that if they don't get by summertime a deal for an arena in the Arizona market, I think they're gone. I think they just have enough, and if you can't find a deal, the owner has the right to go out and look for a permanent home in a good market for this team.
Well, there's no question about that, and the NHL may very well should have cut bait with that market.
Well, that's why they're still there, Jay. You know that, right? Gary did not want to give up the Arizona market.
No, he doesn't. Market. But the thing is now it's all about the television, and now that you have Seattle knocking on the door, you can always turn to NBC and say if we had to press Seattle into action, we could do it because you're not going to lose another big market, and the players love making almost $3 million a year in average salary. So if it needs to be Seattle, it's going to be Seattle. It's not going to be Kitchener, that's for sure. And I'm not so sure it's going to be Quebec City. I think that if you lose a market like Phoenix, it's going to be something much bigger. Well, let's. By the way, I want to, before I get to some more topics, have you noticed something about all these markets and all the critique of the Southern expansion and blah blah blah? Have you noticed that ever since the Nashville Predators got a good ownership group, no one seems to have a problem with the Southern expansion in that market, right? Everybody was howling when it was Bill Boots del Biagio or whoever was running the Nashville Predators, and it was a mess. When ownership was a mess, it's because they're in the South. Right. But have you noticed?
Move to Hamilton.
Move to Hamilton. Have you noticed that it's not such a bad idea when you get a good ownership group in there that spends the money, that goes out, shows its commitment to Shea Weber, who was ultimately traded, but lays out the money. Then you have a Stanley Cup final appearance. You have Smashville. Right. You have all this energy around this. And nobody says the Southern expansion was a bad idea. They accept that Nashville's a good market. Now, do you understand where I'm getting with this?
Look at Tampa, Jeff Vinnick. They got a good owner. Wow. They're arguably the best team in the league, and they should go to a cup final. And they've been to a cup final 2 years ago.
Yeah, so don't tell me it doesn't work in Nashville. It's not going to work in Nashville. Don't tell me it's not going to work because it's in the South. People are jazzed about the Predators. The Predators are something to celebrate. I mean, the whole Smashville thing, the Stanley Cup final, you went to the All-Star game. But I'm just saying, when the ownership group changes, note that, because in Arizona, they've never had the right situation, and things always went south. In Atlanta, they never built rinks. They never had the right owner. You know what I mean? So, but to me, nobody looks at Dallas and says, oh, Southern expansion didn't work. Dallas is doing fine. Nashville's doing fine now. JB, so it's just funny to me.
Let me ask you a question. Yeah. Where are all those critics who said hockey wouldn't work in Vegas? Are they hiding under the couch right now?
Oh, my God.
Like, it wouldn't work. No, it's a 3-shift town.
And if it's not all about ownership, and if it's not all about ownership, you brought up Jeff Vinnick. Look at Tampa and look at Florida. Florida hasn't had the ownership, the level of ownership,
or the stability
that is stability that Tampa has had. No. Okay, it's the same state. It's the same climate. Tampa, night and day difference. So, the Florida Panthers may become the Quebec Panthers or whatever. But what's that?
Miami's a bigger city than Tampa.
Miami's a bigger city.
Now, they're in the wrong spot. I mean, they're in Sunrise, which, they should be playing in the same arena that the Heat does in downtown Miami. That would certainly help. But, yeah, it's about stability of ownership and their willingness to commit to spending money. It's not a good example right now, but Terry Pegula in Buffalo. You need guys like that who are willing to stop. I think the guy in Carolina, we'll talk about Carolina moving right now. That guy he's got a lot of money, JB. He hangs out with Mark Cuban. Those are his crew, right? So now I want to see what happens with this franchise.
Yeah, very interested to see what happens there. I wonder if he's looking at this as something that he can just flip down the line, or whether he's looking at this as, no, I'm real serious about this. Well, that's going to be a really interesting.
Yeah, he's done a ton of homework on this team. So
we're talking about Tom Dundon.
Tom Dundon, right? I think that you look at this market, it's probably an underserved market, underappreciated market, and now you have, and there was always the question about Carolina selling the team and moving it and Quebec City and blah, blah, blah. Again, I think what the goal of this league is, and the commissioner and Bill Daly, what they want to do is they want to stabilize ownership. That's the number one charge.
It's all about franchisees then.
Right, exactly. And they have except for Arizona, maybe, they have very stable franchises now at this point in time. So when people talk about the health of the, of the sport, professionally, I think it's great. You see the salary cap probably going to hit maybe $80 million a year. So there was a little bit of a blip there where it didn't go up much. But I still think that the number one goal of the league, and I think by and large, you look at 31 teams, you're probably talking about 29 or 30 that have solid ownership. That's a great job for, and with all the criticism of Bettman that comes about Kid Rock at the All-Star game and all this other stuff, I got to look at the big picture.
Why shouldn't Kid Rock be at the All-Star game?
Because of his politics.
Okay. Flag, okay.
Trump, all this stuff.
Okay. Why isn't he allowed to support Trump?
I don't know.
Why?
It's
Everybody.
Because the liberals,
okay. Well, okay. Yeah, I'm not buying.
He's not relevant anymore. That's
not buying it. Oh yeah, Kid Rock. Yeah, no, I'm not buying it. You know what? I don't care if Kid Rock supports Trump. There's two parties. I'm gonna veer off. There's two parties in the country. There's two parties. I don't know. I didn't grow up in a day and age where everybody lost their marbles because the next door neighbor voted for the other guy. What the hell happened to us? Oh, you support Trump? Oh, you're a pariah. Half the country voted for Trump. So why can't Kid Rock's a big Red Wings fan? You should be celebrating that he's there. He's a huge international celebrity. Why wouldn't you have him there?
Optics, politics.
Optics and politics. Oh, okay, all right. Okay.
That's not me.
Optics.
That's the argument.
Yeah, which of the writers, by the way.
He has a Confederate flag in the
picture. Who cares? For all the writers who are trying to infuse their politics into their hockey writing, and I know who you are, by the way. I know which ones, okay? This is all bull. I'm so sick of this. Have you read articles? I'm like, why are you trying to infuse your politics? Try to slide your politics in somewhere.
Well, we don't want politics. Where we want to.
I want to be entertained. It's a hockey game. Wait.
I agree.
I don't care who they voted for.
Don't care.
No, don't care. All right, well, let's get back to the hockey.
That was good, JB. I like that. It was strong.
Keeping it real. Jack Johnson wants out of Columbus. This was an interesting surprise. He's an interesting figure because his parents did him dirty. And now he's got a tax bill like I don't even want to think about it. Okay, and he's probably been playing mostly for free.
Right.
And probably will for a while.
Correct.
I think what's happening here, Dennis, is that Jack Johnson, he's on a good club too. This isn't about, hey, trade me, I want to play for the Stanley Cup. He's on a team that can contend.
Right.
I think this is about, he's looking at his age now. He's past 30.
He's 31 years old.
31 years old.
Right.
And he's looking and saying, look, I got to get some organization somewhere to give me a long-term deal. Because when I finally get out of this tax nightmare, I need to have something for myself for all that I've done. And, his parents, what they did to him,
betrayal.
It's just
the worst.
It's despicable.
And
so I empathize with the guy.
I do,
because I could see where he might say, who knows, Carolina drafted him, maybe he'll end up there. Somebody give me a deal for 6-7 years or 5, 6, 7 years, whatever I can get, and then that money, most of that money, at least I'll be able to look at that and I'll have that. I mean, what a sad story, boy.
Yeah, and it's a unique situation because of the financial situation he's in.
And I don't think the club holds it against him.
No,
I don't think the Jackets hold it
nor
against him.
should they. It's tough because, look, you're asking to be traded off a contender, like a team that could win the Stanley Cup. And so the optics on that aren't good. But given the mitigating circumstances, I totally understand and appreciate it. My concern for Jack, though, as an individual, is that, if Carolina woke up one morning and said, yeah, okay, I got a deal with Arizona going, so I'm going to trade you to Arizona and get all the playing time you want, and you're going to be a minus 20, and maybe you don't put up the points, so you trade him to Buffalo for a winger, right? That's a concern, is that you go to a really bad team, then there's extra pressure. You got to put up a lot of points if you go to a non-contender, which I assume what happened, and that is more pressure on Jack to produce, because what happens if he goes to an also-ran, he doesn't put up any points, it doesn't help his effort, right? And now the other side of the coin is you got to go back into the room. Now, I know you understand he sat down with Torts. They made amends, but it's tough because Jack...
It's hanging in the air.
Yeah, it's hanging in the air, number one. Number two, from his time in L.A., Jack was always a me-first guy. And this is another me-first situation. Now, granted, different back then than now because we didn't know the financial circumstances that he was going through. But it's a dicey thing for Jack. I understand the pressure of having to earn that next contract. It's much more important for him than probably any of the other 700 players that play in this league. I understand that. I appreciate that. But that trade request at some point in time could backfire him. Either he's going to leave town and go to a bad team and probably not be able to produce the numbers he needs to for a big contract, or he's going to stay in the room and the guys might look at him a little bit differently and they may not all be on the same page with respect to Jack going forward.
Well, I think that what he's looking for is the relief of, look, this isn't the NFL. These are guaranteed contracts, right? So he's looking, this is the last year on his deal. And, I think his relief will come from knowing that he has a guaranteed deal. I have to wonder if how he'd be perceived or whether the points would come. I think if he ended up in an also ran situation with a club that was struggling, but he knew that there was some light at the end of the tunnel financially, I think that'd probably be enough for him. Yeah. I think that he's been through the ringer here.
I think an option for him, JB, seriously, would be to play in the KHL for 2 seasons. Go get a lot of money. He'd probably max out his money up over there.
Tax free.
Yeah, and go over 2-3 years. Put a lot of money.
Who knew in Russia you would be playing tax free? This guy's playing tax free in Russia. Yeah. I want you to dial back 40 years ago, and I want you to put the words tax free and Russia in the same.
Exactly.
That's how the world has changed.
Play a 2-3 year deal, maybe 34 years old, maybe come back, sign another deal here in North America. I think if he gets to that point where he doesn't have bites, I would seriously look at going to the KHL next year.
Okay, kids, let that be a lesson to you. Let that be a lesson to you, kids. Power of attorney. Power of attorney. Right. You never give anyone power of attorney.
Ever.
I don't care if it's Warren Buffett. You don't give power of attorney. All right? So there you go, kids. Now, On to a happier ending, which I
Yes.
hope Jack Johnson has a happier ending.
So do I.
Let's talk about Eric Lindros'
Okay.
number being retired by the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, he's an interesting figure, and I would have to say that, for all that went down with Lindros and his relations with Bob Clark, his relations with the late, great Ed Snyder, and you look at all that went down, knowing what we know now about concussions and what he probably went through individually, Eric Lindros. First of all, I give Bob Clark credit for laying a lot of this to rest and being supportive of him going to the Hall and being supportive of putting his number up. And Paul Holmgren wanted the number up. I think it's well deserved. But I wonder, Dennis, if you would agree that Eric Lindros is one of those figures who history will write him a better chapter. You've got the concussion issue and all these issues that he had medically. Do you think that, looking back, you say, I kind of get what Eric Lindros was thinking?
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I totally understand. He had an alcohol problem after his playing days because of the concussions. Because, JB, it's funny because I was there Thursday night. They did a great ceremony, but he's of the era, he went to the rafters with other numbers like Bernie Perrant and Bobby Clark, right? And those guys won championships in Philadelphia. Yeah. And Eric was the unfulfilled promise, right? He was the best player on a really good team that never got over the top. Couldn't beat the Devils at that point in time.
Wings.
And so there was a level of disappointment, but he's been totally embraced by the Philadelphia hockey community. The crowd was very loud, very vociferous during that ceremony they retired him. So I think everybody's at peace right now. They brought back the Legion of Doom. John LeClaire, Michael Renberg were there, his line mates. So it was a really nice ceremony. But I think that, look, if you look at his numbers, they're not really Hall of Fame worthy numbers, but was he a dominant player during his playing days for a stretch? He absolutely was. So I'm not going to beef the Hall of Fame for him. I get that. I understand it. But now we know about the health and about concussions and how that limits players. Certainly, he would have had a lot more. He would have much greater numbers had he been healthy all the way through. And he probably got pressured by the team that played through stretches where he shouldn't have been on the ice. And we don't know that because the medicine – look, if we had the medicine now that we knew back then that we have now, right, there's no way he'd been playing some of those games. And maybe his career would have been extended. Maybe he would. And
a lot of the longer careers that we know of would not have been as long.
So it's an unfortunate circumstance that he couldn't get to the point where we knew enough about shake it off. You got your bell rung. Go back on the ice. We're down 3-2. We need a big goal. This is a game 7, whatever the case may be. So I'm certain that limited his productivity and it certainly shortened his career.
Well, it certainly was a shorter career. I also wonder about Sidney Crosby because he plays a very rough and tumble game for a guy in his position. And I look at Sidney Crosby as sort of a Peter Forsberg type, And I think that in the end, we talked about this earlier, and it was Eric. Eric played 760 games in the National Hockey League, just to show you, and 865 points in those games, and much of it during the dead puck era.
Yep.
First of all, Eric Lindros is a reminder that, like Darryl Sittler and Gilles Perreault and Marcel Dion, you can't hang Stanley Cup on a guy's neck when he's not on a club that was positioned to win it.
You
okay,
can't hold that
they weren't as good as the Red Wings. They weren't going to beat the Red Wings. Okay, period. All right, so when they faced them, I think that when you look at guys like Crosby. I think that Crosby might end up a little bit like Lindros in a shorter career because the way he plays and the concussions he's been through. I just think it's a reality that we're going to have to face.
Well, the thing with Sid though is that Sid has more money than he's ever going to need in his life, right? So if it gets to the point where And I know his agents, CAA, Pepperson, Judd Moldover, they're not going to jeopardize this guy's career. So I really think, I'm sure they do baseline testing. I'm sure they look at, you can't test for CTE at this point in time, but Sid's a pretty smart, savvy guy. His agents are the best in the business. I think at this point in time, given the fact that he's won 3 Stanley Cups, he's a made man. He's got more money than he'll ever need. I don't think they're going to jeopardize anything in his career. So if he did go down with another concussion, JB, and it was career-threatening, I think he would step away because his legacy is cemented in this game. He's got 3 Stanley Cups. He's done everything he can do in this game. So I agree with you that with respect to Sid, with the number of concussions he's had, it is a concern. But I think he's smart and everybody else is very smart around him. And so they will protect him if it really gets to an issue with his health. with respect to concussions.
Well, Dennis, let's finish with this today. Here in Anaheim, we had a big controversy this week, and now I'm obviously biased because my paycheck says Ducks, but I got to tell you, I thought that suspending Andrew Cogliano stunk to high heaven, and I think that it stunk because even if you would have ended that streak 200 games ago, a marginal call like this with a guy with an impeccable reputation, I don't see where the head was the initial point of contact on this Kempe hit. I don't even know if I want to go down the litany of hits lately that are far worse that are not being suspended. But boy, I was disappointed, Dennis, very disappointed that Andrew Cogliano's Ironman streak ended. And I'll tell you why. When it's a marginal call, I think when it's that close a call, I think you've got to take into account reputation. And if you know, and with regard to the streak, well, if you know that this guy is going to be up there with Craig Ramsey and Steve Larmer and Gary Unger and Doug Jarvis, this is the most respected crew. The Ironman crew of guys, Dennis, is a respected crew of guys. Mm-hmm. It's an on-ice respect. It's an off-ice respect. From an observer standpoint, you get the respect. And you look at Craig Ramsey's one of the class acts still around the game coaching. 8 straight 20-goal seasons, a tremendous competitor, always respected. Steve Larmer, respected guy. And you look at Andrew Cogliano, nobody runs him, Dennis. Watch the game. Nobody runs him. He might take a hit now.
It's a day as long.
Nobody runs him. Nobody runs this guy. And to me, I just think it's very disappointing. If he would have clocked Kempe, say, hey, suspend him. But boy, I thought it was a real marginal thing, and I'm really disappointed that his streak ended this way. And I wanted to get your thoughts on it because you're more of an unbiased view.
Don't hit him in the head.
He didn't hit him in the head. He didn't hit him in the head. No, he didn't.
He got thrown out 5 minutes for interference. Don't hit him in the head. It's unfortunate.
He didn't hit him in the head.
With respect
he didn't hit him in the head. The back of his jersey hit the head. His elbows were down. The back of the guy's head hit. Stop it. He didn't hit him in the head.
So he didn't hit him in the head, but he got suspended for 2 games for a while.
Yeah, and it's a mistake. Peros made a mistake.
You know what? Don't hit him in the head. It's unfortunate. I get it. I'm sympathetic. I get it. There's no history. Right?
What happened when McDermott hit Kasha? What happened when he cleaned his clock and he was concussed for 10?
We're talking about one separate play. We're talking about one particular play. Because on the play, Kempe
what happened to Mark Giordano and Sebastian Aho? There's no suspension.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about this play. Right? This play...
You think they should have suspended for that?
I'm telling you, he shouldn't have hit the guy in the head, and that's why he got suspended, because there's consistency with respect to hitting people in the head, getting thrown out of games.
No, but there's not consistency. We just saw Mark Giordano. We just saw Curtis McDermott.
That's not what I'm saying about consistency. I'm just saying when you draw a penalty like that, you get suspended. That's the consistency. If you look at every boarding call where the game is conduct this year, everybody's been thrown out. So they're applying
No, there's players who have been fined, Dennis.
No, not for boarding. Any player that's been thrown out got a 5-minute boarding, and the game misconduct. There's been 4 of them. Everybody's been suspended for this.
Not Dustin Brown.
Dustin Brown was penalized for checking, not for cross-checking, not boarding.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm disagreeing. I'm disagreeing with you, Dennis.
You can disagree with me. I'm just saying that they're being consistent when this type of I'll give you the consistency. When Patrick Maroon hit Drew Doughty with an elbow and got thrown out for interference, he got suspended. Andrew Cogliano's penalty was for interference. He got suspended. It's unfortunate, yes. Could they have been more lenient? Yes.
Was the head the initial point of contact?
That's what they ruled.
No, but it wasn't.
Well, then you'd have to take it up with George Parros.
I'm going to take it up with George Parros.
With Georgie.
I'm going to.
He's a former Duck. I'm less concerned with a consecutive game streak than probably most. I'm like, okay, why? Why don't we got a knee injury the next game? Right. So
then he would have gone out on something, that has some natural way to go. Yeah, well.
I get all your points.
Come on.
Good guy.
His elbows are down. He hits the guy's head hits the back of Cogliano's jersey, and I see. Come on.
Kempe let the puck go inside the center ice faceoff circle. Cogliano hit him over the blue line, so he clearly lined him up. I mean, you could see he lined the guy up, which he paid the price for it. It's unfortunate, right?
What price does McDermott pay when he hits Kasha and concusses him for 10 games? None.
Right.
Right, because they're consistent.
But we're not talking about McDermott. No, you're missing
one. When Giordano hits Aho.
Right.
What happened?
Right.
Nothing.
But I'm talking about consistency when you get penalized. You're talking about 2 different things, right? That's two different things. I'm talking about when players are penalized for this type of penalty, they are suspended. That's what the test is. That to me is consistency. I agree with you that some hits that go unpenalized, fine, sure, you got a point there. My point is that he got thrown out for interference on a player who was unsuspecting, and he paid the price for it. It's tough. It is tough. I get it. I love the fans in Anaheim putting up the 831 Suns. I think it's great. I think the fact that they gave him a tribute. I think it was a little bit. I mean, it's a little bit too much. I think a little bit. This went on for 3 or 4 days with the Ducks, and I get it. You're upset. It was a tough call. I get it, but it's part of the game. Like, don't hit the guy. Like, don't line him up, right? So I know we disagree with that, and you have very valid points. It's my thing is skate away from the guy. Don't make the hit, and we're not having that conversation, right? So he's got to be accountable for the hit.
Yeah, that's a marginal hit, though, Dennis, because if the back of his jersey hits the guy's head, and the head is not the initial point of contact, I've got a big problem with this. But his elbows are down.
I understand that, but they adjudicated it on the ice as a penalty for interference, and they threw him out of the game. And the league backed the referees.
Oh, they always back.
So on the ice, the call was made. They upheld it, and they gave him some.
Where's the suspension for Giordano? Where's the suspension for Curtis McDermott?
We're not talking.
So these are inconsistencies.
Okay, you can go that route.
They're inconsistent.
You can go that route, but I'm talking about consistency when they penalize somebody for the play.
McDermott was penalized. How come he wasn't suspended?
Because they didn't meet the test that it met for Cogliano.
Oof, I got a problem with that.
Then you should apply to work for the DOPS. You go right in there.
I'd be better than trust me. Peros could use me. He needs me. Trust me. He needs me. So I disagree. Listen, I disagree. I'll tell George when I see him that I disagree. Because I think this
respect your opinion.
Pure nonsense. It's pure nonsense. It's pure nonsense. You see this on the front of the laptop? You see what this says here? You see what this says here? Violent gentleman. You see this? Yeah. You see violent gentleman? I love George Peros. Yeah. Okay? I love George Peros. He got it wrong. Okay. Got it wrong.
All right.
So there you go.
There you go. That's your version of the truth. Fake news.
What's your version of the truth?
I have no problem with the suspension, based on how they've been suspending people.
Oof, that's
no problem with it. You want more people suspended because of different fits. I get that. That's your argument. I've got no problem with this suspension because
you got no problem with McDermott not being suspended.
Nope.
Why?
I don't because I think that they've been consistent with that.
He hit him directly in the head and concussed him for 10 games. He's out. Right. So you don't think he should be suspended?
I don't think he's no. I'm siding with the league and the DOPS.
I'm sorry to hear that. All right. Well, I'm siding with the DMV.
Take you out, so I'd hit you in the
I'm going to side with the DMV and drive my ass out of here is what I'm going to do. I'm going to side with the DMV on this one. All right, Dennis. Well, listen, the controversy continues.
It does, JD.
The controversy continues on DJ Hockey Talk podcast. All right, folks, everybody follow us at Radio Hockey Talk. And you know what? The podcast is no longer free. I'm going to start charging you, Dennis. I'm ringing your credit card. It's not. It's free for everybody who listens to it, but it's not going to be free.
Based on the Cogliano take.
It's going to be $9.99 for Dennis from now on. Make a note to myself. All right. Well, listen. Hey, follow us at Radio Hockey Talk and go to hockeytalkradio.com. And thank you so much for listening to the DJ Hockey Talk podcast. And we'll talk to you next time.